But I want to give you a little bit of background for what's going on right now with regard to us and farsightprime.com. We are building something that we consider to be really, really big. The motivation for us has never been to make money. I myself don't take any money from Farsight. All the money that we get in gets plowed right back into paying the viewers, to buying machinery, to renting this studio that I'm in right now, the whole works. But the whole issue has always been to save, to influence humanity in some way, to save the planet, to produce a better planet than it once was. Now, one question that has been brought up so many times is why we have such an extraterrestrial focus. Now, in the very beginning, we didn't, but as it became more clear to us that there's a bigger picture that really is being totally ignored in the mainstream, that the extraterrestrial question is the only major question that actually exists. And we're addressing it in a few ways. If you look at some of our projects going back, Death Traps, Aliens on Iapetus, War in Heaven, the whole types of things, our solar system has been involved in a huge dramatic struggle. And it's been a struggle that's been galaxy-wide. And you can sort of say, well, look, the mainstream isn't even saying that remote viewing or even extraterrestrials or even UFOs exist. Now, that's actually not true. The Navy has been trying to go rogue on this for a while and trying to push it. And they have announced point blank that they, for example, have an extraterrestrial craft that in their possession. But the Defense Department, after a couple of weeks, said, that's very interesting. We're going to put it back in committee. So there's struggles going on. But the reality is that the extraterrestrial question is the only huge question. The real question you really must ask is, why is it so difficult for people to recognize the reality of the extraterrestrials existing? That is the big question. And so what we have found in our studies is that there really is a huge effort on the part of extraterrestrials to suppress this knowledge, that the extraterrestrial influence on the planet is not something in the past. It's ongoing, it's continuous, and there's a huge struggle for the outcome of whatever happens on this planet. Now, this intelligence briefing, I normally reserve only for Farsight Prime people, but this particular one, I want everyone to sort of have a chance to hear and so to respond to it. The big issue is with changing the planet requires a humanity that is free to be able to think and do whatever they want. And that is not the situation that we have right now. The reason you don't have the mainstream acknowledging the reality of remote viewing is that there is a very active effort to suppress that information. It's way more complicated than anything that you've ever imagined. So we're in a difficult situation of trying to be able to show our projects one at a time, but trying to explain that complexity. Where are the extraterrestrials? Why are they not at your front door? Why aren't they landing in the White House lawn? Things like that. We're in a very difficult situation of having to explain all of that in the context of a huge effort to suppress that information. So how are we going to do it? We're doing it, first of all, by doing our projects, one project at a time. But there's something else. You see, if you do our projects one project at a time, it's really difficult to sort of pull all the pieces together into one coherent whole. And we have actually a number of projects in the pipeline and in the can that are already done that we know that we see, and we know where this is going. So when you're seeing like the Raw project that just came out, we're looking at that from the perspective of something that happened long ago, but that is still active and has elements that are huge today, that are still ongoing. We're looking at a perspective of a galaxy that is honestly at war. And we're looking at a perspective of a situation where a planet Earth is honestly disputed sovereignty. Let me give you an example. there's a lot of talk about us going to colonize Mars. Now, do you realize what a big question that is? It has nothing to do with whether we can technically colonize Mars. That's not the issue at all. But what happens on Earth every time there's a piece of land? Somebody claims it. Right now in the South China Sea, China's trying to claim, well, we have this island we just built up. It was a reef, but we built it up. Now it's an island. It's ours, so we own the territory around it. Everybody wants to control it. The U.S. says, no, this is our territory over here in the Pacific. Then someone else says, the Falkland Islands. British says that's our territory. Everybody has territories. Everybody has things, has spaces. Honestly, folks, if there are extraterrestrials, do you think it's possible even that somebody hasn't said they own Mars? Do you really think it's okay for us to just say, hey, we're just going to go there? I'm remembering the YouTube thing that was so funny. There was this guy that got into somebody else's car and the camera was running. And he said, this is great. I have another car. I have this car. I discovered it. And somebody came up to him and said, you can't take this car. It's our car. You can't take this car. And he says, no, it's my car. I discovered it. I discovered the car. So I discovered it. Whatever I discover is okay. It's mine. I claim it. Well, that was so ridiculous, of course, because you can't go stealing people's cars. But the point is, and he wasn't trying to steal it. He was making a point that every time you say you discover something, doesn't mean you can take it. Well, we just can't go to Mars and say we discovered it. I mean, it's so ridiculous. If you look at our past studies, Mars has been racked with war for a long, long, long time. The final and the biggest battle is when the planet that was near it, Maldek, blew up. That was a really serious war. I mean, it had gone on for a very long time. And we now know the players, the major players that are involved in the galactic struggle and the struggle around Earth. We haven't shown that to you yet. We haven't shown you who the actual groups are, but struggling to figure out who the major players are, who the alliances are, who the things are, that's been a huge issue for us. So if you look at remote viewing from the perspective of looking for evidence of psi, of the existence of psi, of the existence of telepathy or anything, if you look at it from just a scientific perspective and want to show statistical studies, you're falling right into the trap. Meaning you have a major ability now to investigate things that have been hidden from humanity for the longest time. And you're going down the rabbit hole of saying, let's look at the statistics on this table to see evidence of psi functioning. And that's just another way to say compartmentalize it, hide it, keep everything crushed, everything slammed down, keep it away from the public. So that's sort of the major question. So one of the things I want to offer to you today is three pieces of information. The first is starting hopefully in November, which is just a couple of weeks away. We're going to have some live streams with some other people that are members of Farsight, working with Farsight. They're actually members of our board, but they're also in the other community, CRV community. So Lynn Buchanan, a former member of the military remote viewing group, he's a board member of the Farsight Institute. And so he's going to be doing a series of live streams, hopefully starting in November. And then Dominic Sorrell, she's been a major person in the old days in the Society for Scientific Exploration, but now also she was trained as an instructor for CRV as well, using the military method. And so she's going to be doing, and she's a board member for Farsight as well. She's going to be doing some live streams as well. They're going to be very different types of live streams. And they're going to be really expansive for showing you some of the breadth and depth of the remote viewing realm. And so I just want to let you know that that's happening. The second thing that's happening is we have finally gotten to the point where our visual presentations of the remote viewing phenomena look satisfactory from the perspective of using light boards rather than whiteboards, using appropriate lighting, the cameras, everything being appropriate. The visuals are really gorgeous now. So we're going to be adding something to the entire thing that we call pearls. Now listen, this is really important. So this is something we're going to be doing, something called pearls. Now this is so very important. It's the sort of the filling out of what we consider to be a new form of filmmaking. So when you see our projects like the Raw projects and so on like that, and by the way, if you're not a subscriber to farsightprime.com, we now have a 7-day trial period, so you can see what's on there and the whole shtick and decide if you want to be a subscriber. So there's a free 7-day trial period for people. So it's really very comparable to Hulu, Netflix, CBS All Access, Disney Channel, things like that. All right, so these pearls, it's part of a new form of filmmaking that we're going to be doing. Throughout our projects, in the beginning and at the very end, before the credits happen, the very end and also the beginning and some places in the middle, we're going to be putting these things called pearls. Now what they are is they're like 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds max, of stage dramatic things that give you hints of what we know is coming down the line. Meaning that gives you hints of the things we're discovering in future projects that you don't yet have, but gives you hints to be able to tie things back. They're dramatizations, but they're very focused dramatizations on exactly the types of things that we're seeing and participating in, things that actually happen. So sometimes things happen in a session that we really can't just show you because they're so dramatic. Like, for example, in the Raw project, when you see my son, Aziz, talk about Hathor. That was one of those situations where it just happened on screen. He was feeling it. He was remote viewing it on screen. It was totally blind. Everything was done totally blind. And he just reacted to Hathor. Well, that type of thing happens a lot with a lot of our projects and a lot of our viewers, but we don't always capture it on video. So this gives us a chance to have these pearls sort of give you the ideas of what happens sort of behind the scenes, and also gives you an idea of what's coming. They allow you to interpret the project that you're looking at into a larger context, a context that embraces the past projects and the future projects. And you're able to look at the pearls and sort of piece together things. Now, it's different from me sort of just presenting everything myself and explaining everything 1, 2, 3, 4, just giving it to you whole as a solid piece. So what it does is allows you to participate. So you participate in the creation of the awareness of what's actually happening by seeing these pearls interspersed within our other projects. And that's going to be happening hopefully in November, which is just like a few days away. Actually, it's the 25th, so it's like starting pretty soon. And then in our other projects, you're going to be seeing them regularly. So you'll be, like, for example, the Raw project. People watch that. That's a 3-hour project. But people watch it, and every comment we've seen is that people are riveted to it from the beginning to the end. And that's just with the remote viewing presentations and so on. So now if we're going to add those pearls to it, which are dramatizations that are really short, like 5-10 seconds, interspersed, people say, oh, I get where it's going. I understand where it's going. Oh my gosh. So it allows people to fill it in. So it becomes more of a real movie type of thing where you're seeing the remote viewing done live, a real description of what's going on. And then you're also seeing these interpretive pearls sort of surrounding it. It really dramatically adds impact. So that's coming. All right. Now, the third thing I want to talk to you about is I want to talk, this does connect things that happened in the past and our projects. So you're going to have to bear with me on this. Friends, just hear me out. We have lots of religions. If you were an extraterrestrial group intent on manipulating humanity for your own purposes, and we're going to get to those purposes as the projects go on, you won't believe how important it is for you to know why they're here, the motivation. If they're spending so much time keeping everything secret, you have to really ask yourself what's going on that we shouldn't know about. So, but the idea is if what you're seeing here is a society that has religions that have you believe something, and then they give you a temptation. that if you believe what we say, and you say that our leader, historical leader, was the true one, and if you believe in that leader and feel that leader in your heart, and you follow that leader, he will grant you, or God will then grant you, eternal life. And if you don't, you're going to be banished to the fires of hell. So now just think about this. If you are an extraterrestrial setting things up in humanity so that you could control this population because they're a resource that you need for some reason that we haven't explained yet, I agree. But if that was the case, you would need to have that population under some type of control, mind control, a believing control. And if you sell them that you are going to be banished to hell if you don't believe, and you are going to be granted eternal life, well, there's a conflict. If you do believe you're going to be granted eternal life, there's a conflict. First of all, how can you be granted eternal life if you're going to be banished to hell also for eternity? Like, eternity is on both sides of the equation. So on one side, you're going to be granted eternal life, and on the other side, you're going to be banished to hell forever. Now, how the eternal part is on both sides, but they say the good side is you get granted eternal life. But then the bad side is, but you still have eternal life, but it's going to be all in hell. Now just think about this, folks. Think about the projects that we do here at Farsight. Our remote viewers, if you follow what we do carefully, our remote viewers demonstrably travel across time and space. That means that they go to the past, any length of the past, anywhere, however, how far, and to the future. And they cross space, and not as well as time. Now, when they go, say, for example, to the past, they, as you saw what happened with Aziz when he was doing the remote viewing of Hathor, he becomes part of the scene. He actually becomes a person at that time looking at Hathor in real life in the past. That means that he and all the remote viewers are already there. They are in the past. And if we have lots of examples, if you go into the past, into the same target, you can sometimes, if they're sensitive enough, actually find one remote viewer can detect the other remote viewer there, even if they were never told that that remote viewer ever saw that target. So if we had another person under totally blind conditions remote viewing Hathor, and they were looking around, but they sort of knew Aziz, they could very easily say, there's this guy really reacting. He reminds me of Aziz. He's over there. What's this going on? So they become part of the past. So this is what I'm trying to emphasize to you. One thing that we have discovered that's absolutely certain is that everyone on this planet Earth already has eternal life. It is impossible for somebody to grant you something that you already have. Moreover, we have found out that it is impossible to take that away. There is no technical capability that exists anywhere in the universe that we have seen that can remove eternal life from a being, from a person. There is no possibility to kill you. It is literally not possible. Nobody can give you it because nobody can take it away. Eternal life is simply a fact of existence. We're built up of the same fabric of the existence of the whole universe, and the universe doesn't go away. Your formation as a part of that universe is just like a cell in your body. The point is that you cannot die, period. So now think about this. If you have a religion, and the religion says you must believe in order to be granted eternal life, what's going on? You have to think about that. What's going on? Somebody wants you to worship them. Somebody wants you to be under their control. And they're saying they will grant you eternal life, but they can't grant you anything. You already have it. They can only make you believe that you don't have it. And then they can make you fear. And if you fear something, then you're under their control. Anything that someone tells you that puts you in a state of fear puts you in a state of being under that person's control. that's the main thing that I wanted to talk about today before answering questions. If you see any religion of any type saying that they will grant you eternal life if you do X, Y, and Z, you have to ask yourself, where did that start? Now, I personally think that, for example, let's just pick one random religion, Christianity. I personally think that when Jesus did his stuff, he did it totally of good faith and told people lots of good stuff that was going on, and that people should believe that there's good vibes in the universe and you should be happy and not worry about things, and love is the thing that drives the universe, and so on like that. That in a slave-oriented earth culture was like a virus that had to be stamped out. I mean, the authorities that were originally trying to control things with the Roman gods, the Greek gods, and all the punishments, and they said, this is really bad. It's like, the guy's a spy. He's a spy. We got to change this. And so they had to change it and morph it and adapt it to fit their stuff. So all the gods became saints. And then the whole idea about eternal life, okay, we'll have that, but you gotta earn it, otherwise you're gonna go to hell. And so the whole thing so what I'm trying to say is that all religions have been morphed, have been changed, have been tweaked in some way to keep a population under control. You can believe any religion you want, it's perfectly okay. But one thing you must see from the physical evidence of all that we do here at Farsight, it is absolutely impossible for anyone to grant you eternal life because you already have it. And we have found that there is no way to get rid of it. You cannot die. It's not possible. It's technically not possible. We have not found any way that any civilization anywhere in the galaxy knows how to actually snuff some person out. What they do have the ability to do, however, is to control a person. And that goes into the death traps. There are abilities to actually capture what we might call a soul, a personality outside of a body, in a body, whatever. In a body, it's easy to capture the person. You simply give them some stuff, brainwash them, tell them they have to believe this, X, Y, Z. But outside of a body, there's other things that can be done. It is actually possible, like a genie that you stick in a bottle, to contain somebody. But you can't kill the person. And eventually that person, after I don't know how long, will get free. But that may take a long, long time. The only other thing I want to sort of tell you that we have really discovered, and this is going to be one of the things that you'll see in the drops. Yeah, I'm just going to ask you, please, just to be patient and watch through our projects as they come out. And if you want to support us, if you do it on farsightprime.com, that really does help. Listen, folks. One of the major elements that's in this universe, that's in this galaxy especially, is warfare and slavery. Slavery in the United States was horrific. It was terrible. The slavery that we see out there is way worse. And right now, we are a population of 7+ billion people that's on a balancing point right now. And we could go in one direction or another direction. A direction of eventual freedom, or the other place is a captured population. Everybody in the galaxy is after something. And there are different alliances and different groups. And right now there's sort of a standoff among the different groups. Back in the old pyramid days, one group had dominant control. Actually, we found that there were two major groups that are sort of competitors, sort of enemies, but they are alliances also at the same time. But anyway, the outcome is not good for humanity. It's repression on steroids. But there's another group that happens to be big enough to help us, protect us for a while. And that group is not big enough to completely defeat the other groups, but they can hold their own. It's a standoff type of a situation, but nothing can happen unless we do something. So what's going to be happening is in December, we're setting things up in November, but in December, we're going to be the beginning of a campaign, a special campaign, a campaign where we're going to be asking something from you. Now, what we're going to be asking something is, we're not going to be asking for money or contributions. We're going to be asking something of you. something to do, something easy to do, but it's going to be very much of a surprise. And it'd be easy to do, but it's going to be something that you will understand only once you get to it and only once you follow our projects and so on. So anyway, those are the major ingredients that I sort of wanted to tell you that are coming. New live stream stuff with people like Lynn Buchanan, Dominic Sorrell, pearls interspersed within our projects that give you interpretive hints at what's coming, how to piece things all together. The idea that you already have eternal life, because remote viewing, nothing that we do in remote viewing could be possible if that wasn't already the case. No one can take that away from you. And the last thing is, the only thing people can do is control you. And they put in enormous amounts of effort to do that. And our project, our goal, our mission is to help free humanity from that control so it can actually have a positive destiny, so it can do something. We're going to turn out one way or the other. We're going to turn out to be a very strong species, but it's going to be either a species that is free and doing something constructive in the galaxy, or it's going to be a strong species that's a mercenary slave force for another group. We're going to have to decide which way we want to go, and we won't have that much time to figure this out. So that's what Farsight stuff is all about. Anyway, those of you who follow us on farsightprime.com, you're the ones who are actually making it possible. So I want to thank you. And if you haven't yet followed, try the free 7-day trial, because we rely on you more than anything. Okay, so I'm going to start looking here at the questions. I've been talking for 30 minutes, and now I'm going to answer some of your questions, okay? This is the intelligence briefing. And this kind of stuff, by the way, is what we do normally every month on the intelligence briefing. That's normally reserved just for farsightprime.com members. But this particular one, I wanted everyone to see and participate in. We have 720 some odd people participating in this one, so that's really nice. Yeah, someone said it looks like a story out of Dune. The reality is a lot of our science fiction is fed into people to help acclimatize the population to things that are actually going on. So script writers, authors, someone like that get these ideas and they think they're just their own ideas, but actually people are feeding these ideas into their heads in order to help get this information, this understanding into people's minds. What hair products do I use? Only your hairdresser knows for sure. Let me see. Oh, please give us a hint on what the malevolent ET groups is. No, I'm not going to give you a hint. I'm going to let you actually look at our projects, and from our projects, you are going to be now starting to see these pearls within them to help to interpret these things. And you're going to have to figure this thing out by yourself. We're going to spell it out slowly, especially with these pearls. And if you just keep watching our projects and intelligence briefings, especially, I will explain everything. But it's really complicated and you just can't get it. So many people look at one project and they come up with so many objections. But what about this and what about that? And you have to say, well, look, this is just one project. Everything has to be tied together for everything that that makes sense. Okay. Our imprisonment feeds energy to the negative forces. You know, that's sort of a interesting phrase. I'm glad you put it. It's actually true, but you have no idea how deep that goes, and you won't really understand how deep that goes until you see where this is going. We're going really, really far. It's going to take us another 1.5 years to sort of spell it all out, but you're going to start seeing, just because each project comes out one a month. And so but there's a lot of stuff that has to be pieced together. It's an enormously complicated situation. It's not simply a situation of saying, oh, wow, remote viewing works. Oh, wow, the UFOs are real. Oh, my gosh. It's not just a matter of saying, oh, there's a planet Mars. We can go colonize it. There's complexities that are so mind-boggling to every single one of those things. How old is humanity? Humanity is so old you have no idea, because what we are, we're just a set of genes for humanoid type beings, and there are humanoid and non-humanoid type beings all over the galaxy, And you really can't just say how old is humanity, because how old are the particular genes in this particular set of genes, this particular combination of genes. And I'm not saying that evolution doesn't exist. Evolution obviously exists, but we are much more than just evolution. So the mainstream science says our human civilization basically is 3,000 to 10,000 max years old. And go back 100,000 years, we popped out of an ape in some way. That is so crazy. You can't pop out of an ape in just 100,000 years. Evolution works. There's no question about it. And there are different hominid species that are there. I'm not arguing against evolution. Darwin was correct. There is evolution. But there's a much more complicated picture, a much bigger picture of extraterrestrials coming here and genes being spliced in. Evolution takes hundreds of millions of years. It does work. It does work. It does work. But you don't pop somebody out that quickly to be a person just like us. It doesn't happen fast. So when you see us having major changes and civilizations having major changes, and then mainstream coming in and saying, okay, this is just a recent thing, it's absolutely bonkers. It's nuts. So, and in terms of, they can say, well, where's the archaeological evidence? There is tons of archaeological evidence that you are not allowed to see. That's the whole major problem. My son was talking to a couple archaeology students on a dig out in Israel a while back. And he just started to ask the students about some of the anomalies in archaeology. And they said point blank, oh, we know all about those. We're not allowed to talk about those or write about those, or we'll never get a job anywhere. That's fear, and that's what's in the entire archaeological discipline. So that's true of all the disciplines. The real question you have to say is, who's doing the control and why is it so successful? And that's one of the things we're going to be showing you as time goes on. All right, let me see. Who will win the election on November 3rd? Okay, actually, that's a really important question. We are in a situation of multiple timelines. So we have a situation where in the future, there are futures where all types of things happen. There are futures where one candidate will win. There are other futures where another candidate will win. There's another future where there's contested election. There's another future where everything goes smoothly. There's futures that happen all different types of ways. So the real question is, what is the probabilities given the forces that we're seeing happening right now? And I think the probabilities are so densely packed right now. I don't think it's easy for us to actually make those type of things. Sometimes the probabilities are so dense with so much energy in it. It's just you have to wait till the firecracker pops before you can actually settle things down. So this is one of those things where you're just better off waiting a few more days to November 3rd and just seeing what happens, and then we'll find out what timeline we're going to be going on. Are the Star Wars films depicting history? Okay, now I'm not saying George Lucas would agree with this, but I would say yes, they're a fictional version of galactic struggle, that it did indeed actually occur and is in fact still in play, but maybe not on the level that it was in the past. But there's still fighting, there's still a war, there's still struggles, there's still contests, there's still people fighting, there's still shooting, but it's not at the level that it used to be. But yeah, it was a real thing. And what we're seeing in our planet, our solar system right now, is actually a struggle for control. This solar system has gone through hell, major battles, and the sides have switched as different groups occupy the solar system at different times. And now we have a situation where it looks like Mars is sort of owned by one or two groups, and who knows who's controlling the moon. But anyway, it's not possible for us just to go to places. It's like somebody jumping into your car, as I mentioned earlier, and say, I discovered it. It's mine now. I discovered this car. It's mine. I discovered it. You just can't do that. There's other people there. And so you can assume that when we went to the moon in the past, we were somehow informed not to go back. They let us go a few times, and then that was it. Now there's a big effort to go again back to the moon and also to Mars, and we're just going to have to wait and see how that plays out. If we do end up going these places, be guaranteed to know that we're being allowed to go to those places. It's not that Mars is just open territory. You can just go And the whole idea, let's go and plant the American flag. What are you talking about, planting the American flag? If that's what we're doing, thinking of planting the American flag and sort of claiming it, don't you think the extraterrestrials would have done that a long time ago? People own something because they fight for it. Mars is really not worth fighting for much anymore. It used to be a really great planet. They used to have lots of water. They had lots of plant life, a lot of animal life. It was a really interesting place. It has gone through hell. And we're in a situation where the sides that are out there are trying to figure out what we're going to go through, what's going to be useful for us. And to be very honest, it's a real question. Some sides think that we're idiots, that we're morons, and we're destined to be a slave society, and that's the way it should be. And other sides say, no, we have potential for doing something. What I do know that is, if we succeed with what we're doing, which is to emancipate, to free the society, it will be a beacon of hope, a beacon of promise, a beacon of potential that will spread throughout the galaxy and be one of the most amazing and important things that ever happened in the entire galaxy. So it's very important that we continue doing what we're doing. All right. Destined to be food. Actually, you'll see, we're going to be covering some of things like that. I know some of you think that we all are morons, but that's, believe me, the old phrase, as above, so below. If we're morons, everybody out there is morons. There's a lot of struggle out there. Okay, I'm trying to pick up a couple of questions that might be a little different. That question was sort of hard for me to figure out. I was reading a question about the observer effect, but it wasn't quite clear enough. So person who wrote the question about the observer effect, you might want to rephrase it so I can catch it. Some of your questions are sort of longish, and I'm reading them now, and I'm having difficulty figuring out what you're asking. So if you make the questions much shorter, like 2 lines maximum, it gives me a better idea of what you're actually asking. Okay, let me see. There was one question. Let me see if I can grab this particular question. How long will it take to spill the beans for Farsight? It's going to be, there's no end to what we do at Farsight. There's no end to the spilling of the beans. However, the major stuff will probably take a year and a half, the rest of this year and all through 2021, because the beans don't get finished until the planet changes, until there's an open recognition of remote viewing is real and an open recognition that the extraterrestrials are real. As long as that is suppressed, we just have to keep showing what we're showing. One thing that is clear to me, at least to me, is that we're protected, because otherwise we would be shut down. So somebody out there thinks that what we're doing here at Farsight is sufficiently important to the overall idea of emancipation, the overall idea of freeing the planet, freeing the species, that we would be allowed to continue. How should a newbie to Farsight Prime begin? Actually, the best way to begin is just to dive in. You can always start with our Human News show, which actually comes out on YouTube for free. It's also on Farsight Prime. And then just to start watching our projects. The mysteries projects that come out in the middle of the month. The projects that we have, I would advise just starting with what is new every month, because we have a lot of new stuff every single month. We have the Human News on YouTube as well as Farsight Prime, but then we have the ET News. It's only on Farsight Prime. We have the mysteries projects that are only on Farsight Prime. And then we have the economic forecast that comes out in the middle of the month. I mean, it's sort of around the third week of the month. It'll come out in a day or two, actually, for this month. And so we have the live streams as well. So there's a lot of content that comes out every single month in Farsight. And a lot of people notice two things. A, it's a lot more interesting content than the same old movies you've been seeing on Hulu and Netflix. This is all new stuff, and everything's sort of related. So if you get, let's say, I'm a fan of Star Trek, for example. So if you go to CBS All Access, you get Star Trek, but you also get a lot of other shows that I'm not particularly interested in, a lot of sitcoms and other things. So it's sort of hard to justify keeping the pay for a subscription where you're only interested in one show. And with Farsight is totally different. You're actually getting a lot of new content, plus all of the old content, a lot of which is unique to farsightprime.com, and it's all related. So if you're interested in what we do, everything on it is interesting. Now, I was talking with Vimeo. Vimeo is the company that actually hosts our streaming service. So everything that you see is done through Vimeo. And I was talking with our account executive, and he pointed out to one statistic he said, this is extraordinary. He said, in other streaming services, no matter which one you're talking about, the videos that are being watched usually have a percentage like 10%, 8%, 20% of videos that are being actually watched by the community. And he said, and this is your number. And the number was 100%, meaning there is not a single video on farsightprime.com that is being ignored. The community is watching every single one. He said, Courtney, that's just simply extraordinary. We don't see that. It's extraordinary. We don't see that with any other streaming service anywhere. So that's very interesting. So that when you actually have a membership and subscription at farsightprime.com, you're actually getting a whole bunch of stuff, all of which is interesting, all of which is related. The second thing is the forums. The forums are really, really, really fascinating. I mean, there's a lot of comments that happen in the YouTube stuff, but the forums that actually occur in farsightprime.com are actually deeper, more well thought out, more to the point. There are lots of people making very long comments that are very nuanced. And that's a difference between the sort of the YouTube comments and the comments that you get on farsightprime.com. So the forums on farsightprime.com are really, really interesting. All right. Courtney, are you afraid to talk about the Kohler CMA, coronal mass ejection? There's only one remote viewer that I have heard of, or someone who calls himself a remote viewer that I've heard of, that talks about the so-called coronal mass ejection that's going to wipe out everybody on Earth. I don't know anybody else that even thinks about it, and there's a good reason for that. So, I guess that person will continue talking about it as long as it serves them. Okay. As long as you're happy with the backpack you wear. I don't wear a backpack. I do have a briefcase. What do you think of the law of one? Actually, you should see our RAW project. It's a 3-hour project, and I describe the connection to the law of one near the end of that project. So that's a complicated thing. The solar kill shot, is it near? Can't you come up with something better to think about? I mean, like, I would... Anyway. No CME is going to kill us. That person's got their wits together. I don't talk about what other people say, but I'm just talking about there's some things that you hear out there that are... Look, everything at Farsight, we don't tell you anything and just ask you to believe us. We actually show you the remote viewing. We actually show you what it is, and we do it in a theatrically interesting way with great visuals so you can actually watch it and enjoy watching it. So we don't actually say, this is coming, believe this, and you better buy this if you want to survive and find the safe zones. We don't do anything like that. All we do is we do our remote viewing and we show it to you, and then you can decide for yourself what you think about it. Okay? Don't trust people people. Don't trust anyone, including me. Don't trust people. Stop it. Stop it. Stop trusting anyone. Don't trust any human leader. Don't trust any extraterrestrial. Don't trust anybody who says anything. Trust only what you see yourself. And then question, what are you getting? You learn to figure out what you think is real and what you think is not real. But stop thinking that this guy is good. I believe this guy. It's not helping you. Then you're a slave to that person. Just look at the facts. And what we like to do is to show you everything. And even when we start this stuff called pearls that we're going to intersperse in our stuff starting in November, even then, we're not telling you to believe us. We're making interpretive nudges to get you to sort of think about things yourself and sort of put the pieces together to participate in the process of discovery. That's what makes it really exciting. But the one thing I know you should stop doing is stop believing in people. Stop believing that somebody's good and you're going to follow that person. If you follow anybody, you're a slave to that person. Don't do it. Be free. There is nothing less about you that you should bow down and worship anybody else. All you're doing is giving that person control. So if someone says, we've done the studies and we know, and this is dangerous, it's going to wipe out humanity. And if you don't buy this particular thing from, buy that thing and find the safe zones or do whatever, then you're going to be in trouble. That's the same things as religions used to do. You believe us or you're going to be damned to hell. You have to believe us. You believe us. And just believing us means you're going to be saved. And if you don't believe us, you're going to be damned to hell. That's control, everybody. Stop it. Stop letting anybody control you. Any presidential candidate, any leader of any nation, any religious leader, anybody. If they're a leader, put a big question mark over it. Somebody's controlling them. Somebody is controlling them. Don't believe any leader. Don't believe anything that mainstream tells you. Don't believe that anything somebody says, here's a clear package, take it, and then you're free. No. There is nobody that escapes without being able to do it themselves. You are equal to everybody else that lives and exists in this universe. You have to accept your equality to all of the great beings that you've always heard about. If you don't think you're great, that's because you were made to believe that you're small. If you think that you must be a reverent follower or you're going to be damned to hell, somebody tricked you into thinking that. If you think that you have to do X, Y, Z, or you won't find the safe zones and you're going to be left in the dark, someone's controlling you. That's not good, folks. It's not good. What we try to do here is to promote the idea of looking at the evidence for yourself, because you've got a lot to work on. You have all of mainstream science, all the political leadership, all of which is telling you lies, and you've got to look at our stuff and combat all of their stuff. They've got lots of resources, and it's a real job to try to do this. We will win eventually because the truth eventually wins out. The only thing that could cause us to fail would be an attempt to try to control you. That would lead to disaster. So the only thing we can do is to give you hints so that you can be part of the participatory process of discovery. That's why we're using these pearls. We don't want to say, trust us, we've done the work, we know what it is, now you must believe us. That would lead us down the rabbit hole of oblivion. That would be bad for us. So we're going to give you these pearls interspersed with our regular project starting in November. And they'll be theatrical. They're going to be interesting. They're going to be fun to watch. And they're going to liven things up. And if you take them seriously and try to use them as hints to connect the dots so that you participate in your own awareness, then you'll get something great out of it. But trust me about one thing. If you believe me and want to follow me, you're going down the wrong path. I don't want you to believe me, and I don't want you to follow me. I don't want you to do what I do. I don't want you to follow my diet. I don't want you to follow my belief system. I want you to discover it as an equal to me in all respect. I just want you to take a look at what we do, and if it is pleasurable to you, you will gain something out of it. I have a vision that this will eventually lead to a freedom for all of the galaxy, but it starts with the freedom for this planet, for this species that's right now under siege from different sides that want to control it. And right now we have a brief respite where we're sort of able to sort things out, and people like us at Farsight are being allowed to do what we do to bring you the information. So this is really good. We have a potential here. If this was done a couple hundred years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do it, not just technologically, but people would have crushed us. So now we're being allowed to do what we're doing. Now the big question is humanity sufficiently capable of taking the information and doing something with it? That's the big question. But I definitely do not want to go down the road that the oppressors have gone, which is to say, now you must believe me. It's me versus them. No, don't ask me to go in that direction. All I want to do is present the information in as theatrically and pleasant and exciting manner possible, so that you then can seize control of your own future by yourself. And that's the only way everyone on the whole planet has to do this in order to free this species. There's a lot more coming, believe me. Remember what I told you earlier on. We're going to be asking you to do something in December. I'm not telling you what it is now. It's going to be a surprise. It doesn't involve giving us money. It's something that I'm going to ask you to do. And if you like it and if you want to participate with it, it will greatly help. But there's a reason for it. You have to wait for us to fill out the rest of the stuff throughout November so that we can start it on December 1st. You'll see. And you'll be quite surprised, I think. All right. Problem is, people aren't generally good. Actually, that is not correct. People are generally good. They're just under control. They are controlled. And when they're controlled, it's hard for anyone to see the good in them. The people that do bad things, sometimes they're just crooked, but they enter the realm of being crooked with their free will. And but generally speaking, you have to control very few people on this planet Earth in order to control the entire planet. Just a few leaders. You talk about basically less than 1,000 people you have to control in order to really control 7 billion. It's not that hard a job, folks. To control 1,000 people is not that hard a job. To mentally influence and sometimes to overtly bribe 1,000 people. It's just not that hard. You think, how can they control 7 billion people? Because those 7 billion people look to their leadership. So you look at the leadership and you say how many there are, and you say 1,000. What can we do to control those people? It's not that hard, folks. It's not that hard. I will say one thing that's pretty interesting, and that is that there are two ways to conquer a planet. The first way is to actually move forces in, blow things up, but that's really hard. Then you have to put soldiers on the ground, and it's a mess. And then what have you actually gotten? The better way, and this is what we've been discovering that I'm going to be showing you as time goes on if you keep watching our projects. The better way is to do it through mediaries. So when you do it through other people, you control the leadership of that society. And then you control them through various different ways, sometimes overt bribery, sometimes money, sometimes controlling their minds. Human leadership has been compromised. That's the name of one of our projects. If you haven't watched it, that involved the popes. Just take a look at that. So the basic idea is the better way to control a society, to conquer a world, is to control the leadership of that world and then to get the world to cooperate, especially by instilling certain belief systems and then getting the leadership to build up those belief systems. And if the leadership can be convinced that if they get this populace to support these crazy belief systems, then the leadership themselves will be benefited both financially as well as through more control, then you've got them. You've got the whole world. You've got the whole world on a string. And you're dancing them around like a puppet. So to break free from that is the big challenge. So remember, there's two ways to conquer a world. One is militarily, but that produces a mess. And the other way is to manipulate it, so that you actually can control the population. And then the population doesn't even know who's controlling them. That's really the best way, especially if you're interested in mining the resources. And I'm not talking about mineral resources, but if you're interested in getting the resources from the planet, then you want to keep the planet intact, but keep it under your control. Then you can extract anything you want. All right, so okay, let me go down a little bit farther. So, did you ever have a demon try to trick you during remote viewing? No, there's no such thing as a demon. There's no such thing as an angel, and there's no such thing as a demon. You do have people out there. You do have beings out there. And we like to call some of those beings devils or angels, and we like to call those beings, but they're just people. They're people, and they can be people that you like or people that you don't like, but there's interpretation. Sometimes they look in a way that you like to ascribe to being a devil. Sometimes they look in a way that you like to ascribe to being an angel. But trust me, they're just people. And some of the most nicest of the people are really, really, really sensitive about you worshiping them. For you to actually say, oh, this is so wonderful. You're the heavenly person. They really react to that. They say, they back off from something like that. So those are some of the nicest people, because they know that in your inner self, your real self, you're totally equal with them in the whole way. It'd be like you're going to your best friend, and suddenly your best friend says, oh, you're the one, you're the angelic being that I've always wanted, and now I can understand that I have to promise obedience to you. And you're telling your best friend, what the heck are you talking about? Slap him around or her around for a couple of times. Say, this is crazy. You're saying stupid stuff. What do you mean? We were playing basketball a little while ago. What are you talking about now? You're going to worship me? Are you crazy? I'm out of here. So the point is, some of the best, nicest people out there are ones who don't want to let that happen. Some of the worst people out there say, you're right. I am the one who came from the one. I am the humble messenger. I am the one here to lead you from the dark. Yes. Actually, you should orient yourself a little bit more. 1/2 of a degree, a little bit to the left. That's right. No, a little bit to the right. Move the finger to a little bit. Yeah, now you're getting it right. You have to follow it exactly right, or it won't be quite so good. People that try to get you to follow them, trust me, don't trust them. And if you ever hear anything I say that implies that I want you to follow me, trust me about this. Don't follow me. You just have to do your own stuff, but you can gain something from what we show you. I hope you do. I really hope you do. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. It's 8:01. So we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes. So let me just take a couple more questions, okay? Hold on, folks. These questions are coming. How do we find the truth and know we're not being controlled? If you seek information and just continue to seek it, you're doing pretty well. Just keep an open mind. The issue of control happens as soon as you start seeing yourself saying, I need to believe somebody. If you hear yourself saying, oh, I found the answer. If I believe that person, then I'm free. I'm not being under control. Then you are under control. So if you are believing you actually have to follow a particular philosophy or belief system or group or person, then they've locked onto you. There's nothing, just trust me about this one thing. If you have watched everything that we do, the one thing you should be clear about, if you actually have seen it that it works, then you should be in your own mind accepting the idea that remote viewing works across time and space. Anywhere in the distant past, anywhere in the distant future, any space, that means that the remote viewers already exist all those places. They're not like taking a shuttle bus and going into the past. They're extending their consciousness to where they already are in the past and focusing on that spot. That means they are everywhere. So the one thing that we have concluded that seems absolutely certain from all of the stuff we've done is that nobody can grant you eternal life because something you already have cannot be granted to you. And the other thing is, we have found no evidence anywhere in the universe, and you'll see this as we go on and on and on through our projects. It is absolutely impossible to take that away. You can trick somebody into believing they can be damned into hellfire or have eternal life taken from them. You can trick them into thinking that, but you cannot take eternal life from them. It's impossible. We have found no technology. We have found no individual capability, no advanced being or low being or whatever that is capable of actually destroying an actual person, so the person doesn't exist anymore. Physical bodies come and go, of course, but we have absolutely no evidence, zero evidence that it's possible to destroy personality so that it doesn't exist. You can capture one. You can get them to believe something. And if you get them to believe something, eradicate memories, things like that, watch our death traps thing, they can become quite convinced of certain things. You can do things to people, but you cannot destroy them. So nobody can grant you eternal life because you already have it. The only thing you can do is try to figure out where you are. And we're giving you as much information as we have, as fast as we think you can take it, and also as fast as we can produce it. This isn't stuff that we blink and it shows up. This stuff takes an enormous amount of work for us to do. It takes us a lot of time to make these projects and have them come out so often. All right. If not in the religious sense, why is there evil? There's no such thing as evil. What there is people who believe they need to control things for their own benefit. And those people who believe that they're in a desperate need to control things really struggle and fight to control things. And that means claiming territory, claiming worlds, and if other worlds get in their way, it means destroying those worlds. It's all based on a belief that they need to control things or they're lost. And then there are other people that believe the opposite, that it's not good to control things. The only thing is that if you exist in this, what we might call third density reality, passivity is death. You can always sort of say, well, you attract what you vibrate. Well, that's true. But if you do have your foot in this third density realm, you have to be able to defend yourself. And it is impossible to defend yourself if you're under the mental control of an oppressor. You have to at least have your mind free. Passivity, not defending yourself, thinking everything's cool, that just leads to enslavement and death. It is true that, this is something we're going to cover later on, that it is true to free yourself permanently involves two things. A, you have to be able to defend yourself in this three-dimensional world, in this third density layer. But then you also have to be able to take yourself and the surrounding environment and move it into a higher density. The higher densities that vibrate a little bit higher, it's a more complicated subject. I don't have time to go into it today. That's the only way to sort of separate yourselves from all the fighting. The fighting happens on this third density level right here. But there's something to be gained from this third density level. So if you're going to be here, you have to be able to fight. You have to be able to defend yourself. And at the same time, you have to be able to elevate your vibration to raise your density so you go up into a higher level where that fighting stops. It goes two ways. Those people who say, no, just raise the density, feel good, you're above all this, they're slaves. They get captured. They get blown up. You have to be able to dance. You have to be able to defend yourself if you are here. Or the opponents will find some way to instill fear into you. So while you're defending yourself, you also have to simultaneously raise the vibration to get into a higher level. And the third density fighting doesn't really exist at that higher level. So it really is a way to sort of separate and you get away from it all. But you don't want to get away from it completely and not have the third density experience. Because the third density experience is interesting. You get something from it. But yeah, Star Wars type stuff, that's part of the essence of what was talked about in Star Wars. Initially, the Jedi were fighting everything, and that just brought more fighting and more fighting. And then Yoda eventually realized you can't just win this by fighting. You have to do two things simultaneously. You have to raise the vibrational level of everything and fighting has its place on one level, but also you have to simultaneously raise the vibrational level. If you just rely on Jedi going out there to battle the Sith warriors, all you're going to have is more battles. You have to do both at the same time. But that's a complicated subject. Really, it's for another day. All right, folks. Just keep watching what we're doing, folks. If it pleases you, I hope it does. We're doing everything we can to make it an enjoyable experience. And watch for the new stuff that's coming, especially the pearls that we're going to be interspersing in our stuff. And remember, new live streams are coming out in November. We haven't gotten as many live streams as we wanted this month because there was so much stuff going on at the same time. But the new live streams that will have Lynn Buchanan, the world famous Lynn Buchanan, CRV remote viewer from the military. He's a member of our board of directors. He'll be live streaming right here at Farsight Prime, right here on Farsight's YouTube channel. And then Dominique Sorrell, also on our board member, a CRV remote viewer and teacher. She'll be live streaming as well. They're all going to be adding their different elements. And then we have these new projects and a new campaign that's going to be starting in December, and all of the elements for that campaign are being uploaded in November, slowly but surely, so that everything will be set, and December 1st it starts. And that's when we're going to ask something of you. No, we're not going to be asking money from you. We're going to be saying something, asking something else. We're going to be asking you to do something. Very surprising, but we have to explain it. All right, everybody. You are great. So I'm going to sign off now, but I'm going to let everyone keep on chatting for a little bit longer. And I want to tell you, you guys are the best. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for being with us, and thank you for watching, and thank you for sharing your time. Take care.
you.